key skill to understand that deep work is a skill that must be trained. How do you train it? I'll give you 3 quick, concrete things that seem to work well. Number 1, embrace boredom. So I don't mean that you need to be bored all the time, but what I do mean is that on a regular basis, at least a couple times per day, you experience boredom. By which I mean, technically, you feel a craving for novel stimuli, and you don't satisfy that craving. You just stand there bored. You're in line, you just stay in line without pulling out the phone. Your friend goes up at dinner to go to the bathroom, you just sit there at the table and are bored without giving yourself some stimuli. The reason this is important has nothing to do with boredom being good. I mean, it's not. It's boring. No one loves it. It's not a moral argument. You know, it's just we're uncomfortable that we're always distracted. It's actually much more pragmatic. What has happened in the era of the smartphone is that for the first time in human history, we actually have the capacity to completely eliminate boredom from our life. Because of the smartphone, you can go through your entire day without ever feeling the sense of, oh, I'm bored, I want some novel stimuli. You can always deliver that to yourself through a smartphone. The reason this is a problem for deep workers is that builds up over time a very strong association. It's almost like a Pavlovian connection. Your brain learns boredom, stimuli, boredom, stimuli. Right? Get a little bit bored, I get stimuli. And if it's the only thing that's been shown, what happens when it comes time to do deep work? Not good things. Because deep work, by definition, is boring in the sense that there's not a lot of novel stimuli. You're focused on just one thing. And if your brain has this Pavlovian connection, boredom means stimuli, boredom means stimuli, it will not tolerate deep work. It will not tolerate a long period of time without lots of different stimuli coming in. So a key foundation to succeeding with deep work is to break this Pavlovian connection. And the best way to do it is just to experience on a regular basis, not all the time, but on a regular basis, boredom where you just remain bored. Second strategy for training yourself to do deep work, it's called productive meditation. Incredibly effective, also incredibly simple. You take a professional problem, you go for a walk. I don't know why it needs to be walking, but it does. It works better than sitting, it works better than running. Walking seems to be the optimal activity here. While you're walking, you try to make progress on this problem just in your head. As in mindfulness meditation, when you see your attention is wandering from the problem, it's thinking about some email you need to send or what's coming up next, you just notice that and bring it back to the problem. Wanders again, you notice that, you bring it back to the problem. At first, this can be very difficult. Your attention's all over the place. Pretty quickly, however, you'll see significant gains. It's almost like cognitive pull-ups. That's the way that my readers like to think about it. Something that's really hard to do but gives you results pretty quickly. This is that. This is that. You do this for a month on a regular basis, you can substantially increase your brain's comfort with sustaining concentration on a single target. The final quick strategy I want to mention here for how you can train your ability to do deep work is the notion of doing some type of interval training. Pretty straightforward again. You get a countdown timer, use the one on your phone. You say, I'm going to work on this particular task deeply. Okay, I'm going to work on this particular task deeply. I'm going to start my timer, and I'm not going to do any distraction, no glances, no just checks, no inboxes, no phones, no conversations, until the timer gets down to 0. If I fail in that and do a quick check somewhere in there, I have to stop and reset the timer and consider that to be a failed interval. The psychology here is that if you just tell yourself, okay, I need to work deeply on this thing all day long, your brain's going to say, well, we're going to have to take some breaks anyway, so now is as good a time as any, and you're going to find yourself doing these checks much more often. But if you say, no, I'm doing this for 40 minutes, and then I can go nuts on my phone if I want, but 40 minutes, that's all it is. Your brain is a little bit embarrassed, like, well, okay, I don't have a strong argument for you that we can't go 40 minutes without looking at the inbox, and that bit of cognitive shaming actually helps you get exposure to working on something without distraction. I say interval training because what tends to work well here is you start with a time period you're comfortable at. When you notice that you consistently hit those intervals without failing, you increase the time period by a little bit. And then when you're successfully hitting that new length without failures, you increase that time period a little bit. It stretches systematically the amount of time your brain is comfortable